Yeah, so my downward spiral, as I like to call it, I grew up very religious in my family, in different churches throughout my life, and got to a point where I was having Bible study groups in my house, etc. And I was still bodyboarding a lot and doing commercial fishing, and became a lifeguard even. And so, I always had my life growing up on the ocean, and it was, it's a positive experience. But it's interesting because I kind of let myself get filled with this sense of holier than thou attitude, I guess you could say. And I looked down my nose at a lot of different people and their lifestyle choices that they were making, and I really became very judgmental and prideful in my heart towards a lot of people. And meth was a big deal out on the west side back then, and I'd drive around and I'd see the guys on their bikes, like tweakers, we'd call them, and they're in the middle of the night riding their bikes around and getting into trouble. And certain friends of mine were cheating on their wives and partying, and I always really had a condescending attitude towards these people. Like, I'm so great because I'm doing these Bible studies and I'm some kind of Christian guy. And I think what it was is God looked at that and he wasn't pleased with my attitude towards his children, really, is what they were, and so and so I became, in the end, worse than the people I was criticizing. And when looking back at it, that's what I kind of realized, is God allowed that to happen for me to be humble in my heart towards people and compassionate, and I had to learn it the hard way. That's pretty much what started it, and just, I guess, choices I made that were really bad. I was married in the past, and I had to divorce my first wife because I was out partying and running around on her, and got involved in drinking and drugs, stuff like that.
So how bad did it really get, though?
Yeah, so it got very bad. As bad as you could imagine, I suppose. Like I said, my wife, my first wife, she gave me so many chances, and she finally had enough and had to leave, and took my sons. They were they were very young, and to have to come home from school and see their dad passed out on the floor, drunk. My ex-wife would tell me that my little 8-year-old son was kicking me to see if I was still breathing. Like, is he still breathing? Is he alive? But not to see that. And so, when she finally left, and I lost my job lifeguarding, and you see homeless people on the beach, and et cetera, and so I did become homeless at one point. And it's not because I didn't have a place to go, it's because my parents' house was available. But they're like, you can't come here if you're using or drinking or anything. And so I chose to live in a park like this, and just doing my own thing, and no money, no job, and got to the point where I was, rooting around in trash cans looking for beer that people may have left behind, and in Kaka'ako Park. I went to jail. I don't know how many times I got arrested. I can't even remember. DUIs and fighting, and I spent a little bit of time in OCCC, just a few days, and made me realize I don't ever want to go back there. It's a terrible place to be caged up like an animal on 24-hour lockdown. But yeah, it got really bad. Stealing, lying, hurting people, stuff like that is really bad.
So did anyone try helping you through these hard times?
Yeah, it's crazy. I had the hugest support network of people that really wanted to help me, that reaching out to me and trying to get me into different rehab programs. My family was, trying. My dad would drive around to the different drug houses in Waianae, like, getting into cocaine and then even meth and heroin. Just going deep, and my dad would show up at these drug houses looking for me, like, oh, have you seen my son? And I'm like 27 or 30 years old or whatever it was, and an adult, and my dad's looking around for me because he cared about me so much. And they're like, hey, you got to tell your dad you can't be coming around here, you can't be doing that. I go, oh, you better be careful. My dad usually has a gun with him. But just kidding. But yeah, so, I did have a lot of help. People really wanted to help me. And I just didn't want it myself. I wasn't ready.
So, with saying that you had all this help, but at that time, either God or yourself, or you just haven't experienced enough loss in order to humble yourself, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I before I turned it around, I guess you could say yes, I didn't experience enough loss. I really hated myself so much that I wanted to die, and I didn't have enough guts to put a gun in my mouth. And I even got a tattoo across my stomach that says suicidal. And I really was trying to destroy myself, destroy my body because of all the guilt and the shame and the fear of not being able to come back from where I was. And so I tried to destroy my body with drugs and alcohol, really, and just tried to be as depraved as I could possibly be, and to find my rock bottom. And my friends would tell me, "Oh man, you're digging yourself a deeper hole, and you're finding rock bottom, and you got bloody fingernails because you're trying to go deeper than rock bottom."
So did you ever try stopping and it didn't work and you fell back even further, or when you stopped, you went clean and cleaned up?
Yeah, I had tried stopping a lot of different times. I went to rehab programs 4 or 5 times, you know, and in a 12-year period, the most days I had sober, I think, was 20 days in a row when I was in an inpatient rehab program, but I was never able to get more than that sober in a row. And, you know, it really wasn't what it was me trying on my own power to stop. And I'm not strong enough on my own. I'm not strong enough to stop or to stay sober.
At that time, were you still very religious, or had you given up on God as well?
No, I've never given up on God as far as my belief in His existence. I always knew God was there for me, and I always knew He wanted me to come back. I knew that if I died living the way I was living, it wouldn't be a good thing. I knew that I would go to hell. That fear wasn't enough for me at the time, though. And so yes, I did deny Him and His help. I did, yeah.
So what finally worked for you?
What finally worked for me is an interesting question. You know, I met a beautiful young girl. Her name's Bethany, and we're married now. And so we were dating for a while, and she kind of had this rescuer mentality, I guess, that rescue this messed up guy. I mean, she was 20 years old when we were dating. I was 31, and I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car. I was in a rehab program, and I didn't even have a real place to live, you know. And so she kind of took me in and tried to help me, you know. And you know, one thing led to another, and we moved in together, and we lived together for a while. And the party thing got old with her after a while, and she started getting sick of all the drinking. And I did lay off of the drugs a bit at that time because she wasn't into that stuff at all. So I laid off the heavy drugs mostly. I would do some cocaine once in a while, smoke some meth once in a while. Got away from the heroin. But the drinking was very heavy, very, very heavy drinking, continual drinking. And so after a while, she was getting sick of it, the drinking and the partying. She would drink a little bit here and there, you know, but she really wasn't into drinking or partying. And so I always promised her that one day we would get married and I would stop drinking and I would stop partying. But I never did, you know. And it was interesting because she wound up getting pregnant with our first daughter, Rachel. We got married, and I promised her, like I said, now that you're pregnant, I'll stop drinking, and I didn't. And then I promised her when we get married, I'll stop drinking, and I didn't. And then when she gave birth to our daughter, I promised her I'll stop drinking, and I didn't. And like I drank on our wedding day. I drank in the hospital while we gave birth to my daughter. We were there for a week because of a difficult pregnancy, and I was having my friends bring me alcohol to the hospital. And I was just drinking in the hospital. And I mean, I wasn't sloshed all day every day, but I guarantee you I had something to drink every day. And so it just kept getting worse and worse. And then when my daughter was about 2, I had started getting back into cocaine again, and I got real scared. I really got scared that I would go back to where I was before, using cocaine every day, smoking it, shooting it up, stuff like that, and that my wife would leave, and that I'll go through that again. And I was afraid that if that happened again, I would not be able to bounce back. And so one night, one afternoon actually, my wife came home, and I was completely annihilated drunk. My face was all bloodied and battered up because I had been riding my bike around in Waimanalo, drinking and crashing into things, and done some cocaine even. And so she came home with my daughter, and she's like, all right, this is it. I am totally done here. I am not coming back this time. And so she left, went to my sister's house, and my parents came over and stayed with me. And so my idea was, I'm going to wait till 6 o'clock in the morning when I could buy beer again, kind of deal, you know. And my parents had a different idea. My dad was going to a church, and he said, hey, he called up his preacher and told him, hey, can you pray for my son? I'm going to put him in rehab again. And he said, how many times has he been in rehab? He said, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. And he goes, why don't you just bring him for a Bible study instead? And so my dad had this idea to take me to this Bible study, and I had this idea to go to rehab to get my wife to come back. And I was like pleading, look, if you come back this time, I'll promise I'll go check into rehab in the morning. And so she came back, and that night, and with the promise I'm going to rehab. And my dad's like, you're going to a Bible study? I'm like, no, I'm going to rehab. And my wife said, no, he's going to rehab. And so the morning came, and as the gears start turning in my head, I'm like, I don't know what I'll do. I'll go to this Bible study, and I'll just sit there and listen to what they have to say, and then I can buy a beer on the way home to kill this hangover, and then I'll quit drinking. That was my big idea. And then I don't have to go to rehab. It's going to be great. And so anyway, my wife was all upset because I wasn't going to rehab, and we go to actually Starbucks in Kapahulu and sit down with this nice young couple from the Big Island. They lead a church here in Honolulu, and his name's Kyle, Bartholomew, and Joan. And we sat down and we opened up the Bible, and it's just a simple Bible study, really, about seeking God with all of your heart, I remember. And I sat there and listened to this nice young couple that took the time out of their day to come sit down with me, a mess, busted up face, and my bitter wife, and my parents just kind of don't know what to do anymore, you know. And I just listened to what they had to say, and then decided that day that I wasn't going to drink that day. And I hadn't gone a single day in 2 years without alcohol. Up until that point, you know. And so I decided in my heart that I wasn't going to drink that day. And I the times I quit before, it's crazy because, like, I would stop drinking for a few days at a time, and I'll have this insanity of anxiety that just drives me crazy. I curled up crying, you know, crying because of the pain, not having drugs or alcohol. And I was so addicted to it, and it was just it's an unimaginable pain, anxiety and fear, and so I told myself, no matter how bad it gets today, no matter how bad the withdrawals are, like shaking and physical illness, that I wasn't gonna take anything, and I didn't, you know. And I mean, you have to understand, like, how much I used. Like, I remember putting cocaine, heroin, and meth in a needle at the same time, and like just putting it in my vein. And my friends are running away saying, oh, you're gonna die. They don't even want to be there to watch me die. And I didn't even care. And then, yeah, I don't know, it's just grabbed me. crazy to think that that could happen and I could still be alive is crazy. And so that day I didn't drink or use anything, and I continued studying the Bible with Joan and Kyle. And about 10 or 12 days later, I ended up getting baptized and giving my life to God. And you hear about these Bible stories when you're a kid about Moses parting the Red Sea, or people being raised from the dead, all these crazy stories about these miracles that Jesus did. And you may find them hard to believe. And I've never seen a miracle like that, but for me to be able to go from one day to the next without drinking and not get any withdrawals, not get any anxiety, not even get any cravings or urges to use anything is a miracle for me. And I didn't, from one day to the next, I keep on thinking, I did have a hangover, but I kept on thinking that I'm going to get a withdrawal symptom, like at least an anxiety or some shakes, but none of it ever came. And I attribute that to God, I do, and I attribute that to His power, that He could actually take that away from me. And I asked myself time and time again, why me? Why did He take that away from me? There's so many people out there that are crying themselves to sleep at night, begging for a way out of addiction, and they don't get it. They just don't. And that was me before that night, that morning with Joan and Kyle. 2 weeks before that, that was me, laying in bed, my wife didn't know I had been drinking and done a bunch of cocaine, and I couldn't sleep. We call it doing the mahi-mahi flip, when you do too much cocaine and you can't sleep and you're flopping around in bed. That was me, and I remember crying with tears in my eyes the whole night, begging God over and over again, please help me. I can't stop doing this. Please help me. And I can imagine God in heaven just going, all right already, They're just like, all right, I'll take it away. And He waited a couple of weeks, and He did, though, He put those people in my life just to share that simple message with me, to see God with all of my heart, not with just part of my heart, all of my heart. And I've been doing that. That was December 31st, 2009. That was the last time I had anything to drink. And to this day, I haven't had a sip of alcohol or any illegal drugs ever, nothing. And I haven't even had a craving, any anxiety about it, nothing, no withdrawal. It's kind of an amazing thing. So that's what finally worked.